Hello, everybody. This is Mr. May. I'm going to show you a little bit about scatter plots today. And we're going to take a look at a scatter plot, an example of it, what makes up a scatter plot, and then how to make one on Google Sheets. So let's take a look at a little scatter plot here. So if you notice, we've got a graph where we have two things labeled, height and weight. A scatter plot is basically a graph that enables you to make a point that is made up from these two values. So we're looking at two variables. This is an example of bivariate data. So every one of these points represents a person, basically, and it graphs both their height and weight. So you can pick any little dot and see that this person is 67 inches tall, and they weigh about 140 pounds. After you get the scatter plot created, you can look for any kind of trend or any kind of correlation in your data. Now, this one looks like as people get taller, your weight increases. So this one has a positive correlation. So the data is a little bit spread out, but you can definitely see some sort of trend here. And that's a lot of times what we look for in a scatter plot. So let's switch over to Google Sheets now and take a look at how to create one of these. So you'll want to go into your classroom and go down to Chapter 2. And under Chapter 2, you should see this document, Bivariate Graphs in Class Practice. So we have two things here. We have a scatter plot and a line graph on the bottom. So make sure you're in the scatter plot data. It should look like this. What we have here is a bunch of information on cars. We have the brand of a car, model of a car, displacement, which is the size of the engine basically, and then the miles per gallon combined. So combining miles per gallon, there's two types of measured miles per gallon, and one is the city miles per gallon and the other is highway. So they basically take an average of these two things, and these are your miles per gallon for each vehicle listed on this chart. This is actual information, so we got this from the U.S. government. If you want to check out where I got this information from, it's right here in this source. And this tells you a little bit about the information that you see. We have a total of 35 different cars in this data set from 2016. So to create a scatter plot, basically we just want to select all of our information, our numerical information. We do not need the names of the cars or anything like that. Just select your numbers there, and since it has headers here, that should automatically show up in our chart. So again, to go create a chart, we can insert chart here, or you can go to format and insert and insert your chart from here. The nice thing about Sheets is it kind of looks at your data and gives you the best chart that it thinks you want. And this one gives us a scatter plot. Now it knows it has a scatter plot because we have multiple things over one number in certain columns. So these bivariate data, as you can see, we're going to look at scatter plots and line graphs. Line graphs don't have this. Usually you don't get multiple points over one value. It's kind of like a function in mathematics. We don't have two different y's for the same x value. In scatter plots, you can have that. So we want to stick with the scatter chart. We want to customize this a little bit. As you can see, this top number here is kind of cut off, and I want to fix that. So as we did with many of our other charts, we can go into our vertical axis, and we can scroll down and set our min and max values. I do want to leave my min at 0. I don't really have anything until you get up to like 11 or 12 or somewhere in there, but I still want it to start at 0 so I can see a nice representation of the trend here. And your max value, I'm going to go a little bit beyond 40. Now I want to just make sure that's my highest number. If you notice, we've got this check here that says allow bounds to hide data. Since that's already checked, there might be some points up there. I didn't really look at the data too much, so there might be points up there that I'm not seeing because the bounds that it created might cut off some extreme values. So I'm just going to unselect that, and that should show me anything if anything was cut off. There's nothing else showing up, so I think we're good here. We want to go into our max value and make that 45. It gives us a little bit more space here And now we can see all of our values, and we got a little bit more room so it's easier to read. The other thing I might want to do here, you notice that we have some dots that are kind of overlapping. I can change the size of these dots by going into my series. The series section of this changes basically information that comes from you, or changes things that come from your information. So it's like your data points basically here. So we want to resize these. If we go to 2, you notice they're pretty small. We don't really want that. So you can type things in. It only gives us an option of like 2, 7, 10, 14. And if you go to 14, obviously you've got even more of an issue than we had before. So I'm just going to go back here and delete 14. I'm just going to hit 4 here and hit enter. And that gives us a little bit bigger size. We don't really have any overlapping anymore. We can see each dot separately, and everything looks nice here. The other thing that we might want to look at from time to time is a trend line. So if I select this trend line here, you see this nice line comes through the middle of the data. You guys might remember this from algebra. This is the line of best fit, or regression line. There are different types of regression lines. Usually we look at just linear regression, but you can look at exponential, polynomial, logarithmic, and a couple other ones. So if I want to just leave the linear regression line up there, it kind of shows me what kind of regression I have. As you can see here, as our displacement gets bigger, our miles per gallon decreases. And I worded it in that way because this is your independent variable, and this is your dependent variable. And that's usually what we see on an XY graph or any kind of graph that we used in algebra. So basically, these are the numbers that, when changed, cause these numbers to change. It wouldn't make much sense if I said, well, my miles per gallon dropped 5 mpgs the last month, so my engine size must have got a little bit bigger. No, that doesn't really happen. Probably something went wrong. You have a part that needs to be replaced or something like that. But I can say something like, well, I had a car that had a 3-liter engine, and now I have a car that has a 6-liter engine, and now my fuel mileage went way down. Well, yeah, that will happen. Typically with a bigger engine, your MPGs will drop. So we see this trend, and it really makes sense for us. The bigger the engine we have, the smaller the MPGs. So that does it for scatter plots. We can close out our chart editor there. And this is a chart now we can go and paste it wherever we want it, put it on a document or whatnot.